Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Design Cinema. This is episode 63, Value Painting. So let's just jump right in. I've loaded up 3 images that I prepared before the video started, and just showing you photo plates that I've got from Google. So they're pretty much standard images. I didn't alter them too much. The second one you see has a battleship thrown in there, which I'll explain in a bit. But the top and the bottom one are pretty much raw images that I just got from the net. And I'll show you guys in this episode of how to use a plate to extract your perspective, your composition, as well as your values. So, and by the end of it, it'll change completely. So, and I'll get into that as we go here. We got an hour-long video here, so we got plenty of time. This is my reference board, what I'm using to extract my design. I'm going to be designing 3 basically scenes of a similar place, and I like these images, and I'm going to be using them as my influence. So you can see Paris, kind of 1900s with these balloons, kind of cool. There's like the Gates of Hell sculpture by Rodin, as well as the Prada store in Tokyo. So just some pretty cool stuff, so the shapes I want to use for my design influence. And what I usually do is I just throw this onto my second screen, which is obviously not on here, but it's to my left where I sit, and yeah, just throw it on there so I always have my references available. So, and usually I have a couple of sheets as well. It's not just one sheet, and these are pre-prepared. I have it from other projects as well. So sometimes if it relates to what I'm doing, and I'll put those onto the screen as well. So, all right, so I'm gonna go ahead and start painting on top of these. So, why do we use photo plates? Well, the main reason is that it saves us time. It usually gives us a free perspective, especially with environments. It gives us all the vanishing points or horizon lines, and all we gotta do is reverse engineer the camera, and we have a free perspective and a free camera. It also gives us the values, especially if you're working in black and white. I already have the full spectrum of whites, grays, and blacks. And on top of that, sometimes the composition could be used. And even the composition is not ideal in the original photo, we could recomposite that composition, such as in the second image you see with the giant battleship put in the middle of New York, right? So it looks ridiculous right now because the cameras don't match. The battleship is huge, the street design is very small. In fact, you can see the car that's parked next to the ship. But it's okay because I don't care about what the photo is. The only thing I care about it is the kind of the forms that's in it, the volume of shapes. I actually don't even care what the subject matter is. And you'll see by the end that we're done with these 3 images, very little of the image, the original image of the photo will remain. So now this process I don't recommend if you're learning right now, you're a student, you haven't been doing your fundamentals and don't really know how to draw that well yet. I seriously don't recommend you guys to try this technique. This is something that's used a lot by professionals because a lot of us know how the fundamentals work, how to plot stuff out, how to do lighting, how to deal with composition. So we could control the photo. So in this case, the photo is not running the show. We are. We're doing what we want, and the photo kind of just is behind the scenes kind of helping us along. You don't want the other way in which the photo is so powerful that you have no idea how to control it. And usually when we see students jump into this process too early, it just leads to a lot of random and very, very bad work because they cannot match camera. They don't know how to match perspective. They don't know how to match foreshortening. These are things that unless you know what you're doing, a photo plate can actually hurt you. So, but you know, you can always give it a try. But if you find the result to be really, really bizarre or actually not good at all, then the best bet is to draw everything out by hand, plot everything by hand, and paint everything. Like maybe watch some of my other videos that doesn't have this process. So this is definitely more useful for professionals. But I thought I'd show you guys just some of the technique we do use in the industry. So it might not be 100% relevant to what you're doing right now, especially if you're learning, but maybe it'll be interesting for you to watch. So you can see here, I'm really starting to get rid of the original photo plate that's behind it. I really don't care about that. It looks like a silo or something like that, right? So I'm getting rid of that design and changing it to what I want to do, which is this kind of city that's shaped with those kind of bulbous forms, kind of balloon shapes. I'm basing these designs roughly off the book called The Scar, which is written by the same author as one of my favorite books called The Perdido Street Station. The author's name is China Bidville, so you guys can look him up. The Scar takes place in the same universe as the Perdido Street Station, but it's not the same. It's not like a sequel to the book. But the universe the author has created is very, very cool. It's very unique. It's not very fantasy. It's not fantasy. It's not sci-fi. It kind of sits in its own zone. It's almost like weird weird zone or something like that, because you got characters with like bug faces, walking around with human beings, and really strange technologies and flying creatures, all sorts of weird stuff. But I like that a lot because it kind of is different from the usual stuff I read. Right? I read a lot of sci-fi and fantasy, and this book, this author's books really stand out. So all these images are sort of based on the world that he's created. Of course, it's a book, so I have no idea if this is what he's thinking in his head, but this is my interpretation of the world from the book Scar. All right. So now I'm borrowing the composition, borrowing the perspective, actually just extracting the perspective, but ignoring pretty much what's the photo made out of, right? I'm not going to make it into this industrial silo park, but change it into a downtown cityscape. For now, I'm not worrying about my local values yet, even though this is a black and white value painting. At this point, I really don't care because the number one thing I got to do right now is figure out the design. As a designer, our number one job is design. So when we sit down at our desk, the first hat we put on, right, the hat meaning your job role, is the hat of a designer. Once we figure out the design, then we switch hats to the hat of an artist. So then we render it out and try to make it look pretty and presentable and visually communicate that. And we use the techniques of art to do that. But the first job we have, obviously, is design. So right now, the values for this kind of these buildings in the middle are too dark. I know that, but I'll only fix that later once I figure out the major forms. So technically, I'm right now using Photoshop CS5. For most of my other work at home, as well as my laptop, I'm already on CS6, which I highly recommend you guys to upgrade to. If you're using any other versions of Photoshop, 6 is actually a really, really good upgrade. But on this machine, since I bought 5, I really don't feel like spending another $1,000 or whatever it cost to upgrade to 6 because they're pretty similar. Whereas my other machines, I literally upgraded from CS1, which is like 7 years old software or something like that to CS6. So it was a major leap. It's like 5 versions apart. But I really like 6. It's really, really good. So I wish some of the features in 5 or 6 was in 5, but 5 is close enough. Resolution-wise, these images are about, right now, I think 5,000 pixels across. So it's a good size for these comps that I'm doing, right? If I ever want to go into more details, you can always res it up to 7,000, something like that should be enough. By the way, you guys are watching this painting being done in real time. I did not record the audio in real time, but the paintings are being done in real time, so they're not being sped up. So you're watching one-to-one of how I work. And for the initial 3 images, it took me about an hour to put all this together, and you guys will obviously see that take place in real time. And then later, I will stop recording and spend about another hour and a half putting another layer of detail. But they never get to a super finished stage, but they definitely get to a point where they should be presentable to a client. So these kind of paintings are sort of blue sky things, something that I do nowadays in my freelance. So this is kind of jobs that most professionals tend to get these days because the more experience you have, the more grander your design themes tend to be because you have the experience, you have the eye, you have the kind of the knowledge base to help come up with new design languages. This is something I definitely did not do when I first got out of school. My junior jobs are usually the kind of stuff like line drawing, cleanup, orthos. So for example, in this image, if this was actually a real project and this was done and presented to clients, if they actually like this design direction, they'll actually have somebody else do the cleanup because you want to put someone who's more junior on it. One, to train them on design, all the kind of technical skills required. 2, they can start learning new design languages so they can get away from, say, generic fantasy or generic sci-fi and learn some of the languages that more seasoned guys are using in their designs. And it's also a good test to see if a junior designer could learn that new language and adopt it, because that's something that's very, very important. Again, if you're a student, this is really, really vital to learn how to speak many, many different design languages. So you're not stuck with like, you can only do high fantasy or you can only do one type of sci-fi. You should be able to speak many, many designs, such as, you could do Art Nouveau, you could do cowboy stuff, you could do Victorian, you could do steampunk, you could do sci-fi, you could do, whatever. So it just kind of opens up your skill base. And even if you haven't done it, you should have the ability to adapt to a project very quickly. Because in the real world, no one's making a game or film off your portfolio. You'll be hired into a studio to adapt to whatever the company is doing. So you have to adopt their cultural language. right? And I'm not talking about spoken language. I'm talking about design language. Just like BMW has a certain way of designing their cars, and that's their company language, right? Based on engineering, based on history, based on their philosophies. And then if you go to a car company such as, say, Volkswagen, the Beetle, they have a completely different language than, say, BMW. So these are things that, as a designer, you need to be able to adopt. So in this case, I'm trying to come up with a new language for this theme, which is kind of this bulbous, kind of Victorian-ish, kind of old school, right? But with these kind of artsy shapes built into it. So I'll work on each one for about, I think since about 20 minutes, I guess, each. Right now I'm only 10 minutes in. I'm looking at my clock. So it's kind of cool to do these audios in real time. I mean, watching this video in real time because it's not sped up. So I sort of know exactly how long I'm taking on something versus usually if I speed a video up, it's going much faster than I anticipated. So I sometimes miss out things to say. But right now, this gives me plenty of time to do my audio. So, all right. Let's see. Let me see if there's anything technical to cover before I jump back into this painting here. I think so far, no, should be okay. So again, maybe I'll get to some of the questions on YouTube that you guys have asked. So while you guys watch this painting take place. So I think one of the latest ones I saw was that, which is an interesting question, is that would 2D ever be phased out by 3D? And the answer to that, I think, not exactly, but 3D is going to start taking a lot of roles in terms of conceptual design. In fact, it really is. If you look at concept today, I think most of it has at least somewhere between 30 to probably 70% of 3D content within a 2D image. That means that the company that you're doing work for is actually providing 3D, or the concept artist himself is building half the stuff in 3D. So because 3D software is becoming very, very easy, they're also becoming much more affordable. So as concept designers, I mean, at the end of the day, you're getting paid for design anyways. So it doesn't matter if you use software to build it out or you sketch it out. The clients really don't care. So a lot of concept guys are using 3D now to enhance their concepts. So, and as software gets faster and better and easier to use, I think a lot of conceptual designers will switch 100% to 3D. But that does not change your job role. Your job role is still design. So if you have a good imagination and could come up with cool solutions and cool languages, then it really doesn't matter to the clients. They could care less if you're using 3D or 2D. So as long as you're delivering cool stuff. So if you look at ZBrush, for example, all the creature guys out there, if you're doing creatures, you're pretty much 100% ZBrush these days, or at least 95% ZBrush, and you finish the last few percent in Photoshop. So I think for industrial design, such as vehicles, you're also seeing that trend starting to push into SketchUp. You're seeing guys building in SSI and Maya, building their kind of the base model, and then designing everything else in Photoshop. There's a lot of advantages when working in 3D because your clients, for example, could actually dump your 3D file into their game and see the scale and even put some basic physics on it and test it out inside the game. So versus 2D, you cannot. And also working in 3D gives you a very fast way to give you different views, such as back, front, three-quarter, first-person perspective. These are things that require 2D artists like us to draw from scratch. So there's a lot of advantages. So yeah, so if you're trying to get into this business, learning some 3D or even knowing a lot of 3D helps you a great bunch for this career growth. So because that's the path the industry is definitely leading to. Right, so far I'm still adding this image, and now I'm starting to adjust the values. You can see that I pushed back the values of those big buildings in the back by fogging them out, pushing them into the distance. The scale of this image also has been changed quite a bit. I started with a silo, and it's not that big. You could put a person in there, and it won't be super, super huge. But now the scale of this has been changed dramatically, so increased in everything. Because scale is a matter of perspective. If you're a piece of ant, if you're an ant, or you're a human being, the table is going to stay exactly where it is, but it's the scale relative to you that changes it. So in this case, by relatively changing the scale of the structure, by making the windows and doors and beams smaller, then I increase the scale of everything around it. But if, for example, if I suddenly drop in a huge door and put a guy walking that's half the size of the screen, this environment becomes very, very small, right? So it's all relative. So as long as your perspective is good, you can actually play around with many different kind of scales. So Right now I'm trying to add some parallax structures, right? Especially in these kind of 2D images, it's very important to try to capture layers of forms that's overlapping each other, and this is how we create depth within environmental design. So if you only have, if you have nothing overlapping, it's actually very hard for the human eye and the brain to kind of imagine the virtual space that's taking place in a 2D image. So we try our best to kind of create this artificial parallax to essentially trick your brain to think that you're seeing 3D space. Yeah. So let's see if, anyways, just painting. So yeah, if you're a student watching this, give it a try. But if you find the results to be very frustrating, that you start this, it just becomes like really, really chaotic, and you're not in control of Photoshop, then this process is probably way too early for you to be experimenting with. So, because this stuff really is generally used by professionals out in the field. If you want to learn this the right way, draw everything. Draw it really nicely. Spend the hours and hours and hours that it takes to do a nice, very nice line drawing, and then paint underneath the line drawing and progress that way. And it'll take you a couple of years to get to a point where you can freeform paint. Unless you have some backgrounds in painting, you grew up with parents or friends who showed you how to paint, it's actually quite hard to do this raw. You have to have some experience in your fundamental structures. All right. So. All right, drawing more beams, just trying to get the architecture. The first image is going to be the one that takes the most time for me, because at this point I'm still trying to figure out the design language, because there's many different directions to take this right now. Like we could go completely steampunk, we could take a completely clean sci-fi, but I'm trying to create this kind of world that matches the previous stuff I've done for Perdido Street Station, which has this sort of an insect-like hive mentality of a city. So everything's kind of stacked and round, a lot of vertical play, and a lot of kind of niche and little alleyways. These are all things I'm trying to adopt into this painting as I go here. And that's going to take some time. Once the language is figured out, the other two images gets easier. This image is also more zoomed in. So we're on ground level. We could actually see people walk around later. So the closer you are to an object, the harder it is to draw and paint, because the detail level increases, and the margin for mistakes also increases. So the further you're zoomed out, the easier it actually is to draw or paint. So for example, if you're painting a skyscraper that's 2,000 stories high in the middle of a desert, that is much easier to draw and paint than, say, an iPad on a table. The iPad on a table will probably take you 5 times longer to draw than the skyscraper, because your detail level goes way down in the faraway shots. Right. So these speed paintings, generally, if you go online to look for speed paintings, they're usually of big, giant environments. Stuff that's just way too big to fit into a game or a film, but they're kind of fun to do. That's why a lot of artists tend to do. I do a lot of those myself as well. They're a nice break from the client work, which tends to be a lot tighter and a lot closer in, so they're hard. So to relax, we tend to do speed paintings. Now I'm balancing the lighting, so getting some artificial lighting from the city. So this place is supposed to be like a downtown scene, right? What kind of central shops and markets will look like. So I'm kind of zooming in and out. So this will be the core of the city. The second one will be the port part of the city. And the last one will be a complete zoom out where the establishing shot of the city. And presenting these three together makes a nice complete package. So if you're dealing with a client and you're trying to sell this kind of design to them, these three should give them enough information to buy off on that concept. So anything less will be a hard time convincing them. So my number for working with clients is always somewhere in the odds, either 3, 5, or 7, somewhere around those. Because you want to give choices, right? Because remember, we work in the design or product industry. We're not here to make drawings, we're here to make products. So if a client's hiring you to generate an idea for a product, you want to provide as many as you can in a day. So, and they have to also look kind of good, right? So you never really want to represent or present one idea only. Then you give clients no choice in terms of picking a design direction. Versus in this case, even if they don't like the design language, they could perhaps choose a composition or pick the theme. Like maybe they like the boats in the water thing. So yeah, just open up the possibilities for clients to continue the conversation. Versus if you have one image and it's not good, then the conversation basically stops. So at our school, this is something we do all the time with our students. Like there's never an assignment in which they have to like do one image. It's always like multiple for everything. So, all right, as we paint, and And apologize for lack of updates on Design Cinema because I've been quite busy. I think I mentioned it maybe a few videos ago, but we're developing quite a bit of stuff on our website, which should be launching hopefully within a month or so. You guys will see that we're trying to build in more community stuff to get you guys involved on Design Cinema and also provide more just kind of audience community-based stuff for you guys. And this kind of stuff takes some time to build out because now we're dealing with more complicated web code as well as design. So it's all to just help you guys and create a better hub for everyone. And of course, everything will be free, so we're not going to be charging some subscription base or something like that. But it's more about providing easier to obtain content. So that's all coming, hopefully within a month. So definitely check back often, either here on YouTube or on our Facebook or our official website. So yeah. Let me get some water real quick. Sorry. All right, this painting started to take place. I'll try to do this whole thing without taking a break here. It's going to be 1 hour of me talking straight. A little bit more water here, so my throat doesn't get completely dried and shot out here. I want to get this done so you guys can have a new episode. So these things actually do take me quite a bit of time to produce because we have to plan them and of course do the demo, and then we got to edit them. And in the cases like this, we have to actually render twice because we got to do the audio after the video is being rendered out. So there's like 3 different passes to get one of these guys out here. So, but it's fine. These things are actually quite fun for you to do as well. They're a little bit different. They're a break from the usual work I do. So they're always fun to produce. It's just finding the time to do these videos that's a little tricky. And I always want to make sure that I provide something that's actually meaningful, and not something that just like some half-done demo or something like that doesn't really provide any information. So yeah, these things take a bit of time to plan out. So, but for the next one, I'm thinking of doing a Q&A because I think we have enough of a gap between all the episodes that now there's like another big batch of questions that I should probably get to. So I'll probably pre-record a painting or a drawing or something, and then I'll just do a Q&A on top of that video so there's something interesting for you to watch while I answer questions. So, and that'll be a little bit easier episode for me to do since I don't have to articulate the actual process itself. So, all right, back to the design here. So these are kind of cool towers, radio towers, building towers, structures, something that just give a parallax. Again, using it to build space and build environments within this set. This is lit from the bottom, not bottom, but it's going to have some artificial lights, like a city or a downtown scene. So you have a lot of artificial lights coming off the lower part of the ground. The white stuff on the ground right now are meant to be reflections of the sky, but they're a little burned out, but I think they look all right. So I'll probably just leave them in the meantime. And up here, the things I'm working on now are just these insect hive kind of buildings or plant-like things. Right? I'm always trying to play off the insect thing because the book itself has a lot of insect type of references, right? Such as characters who have insect heads. So, yeah, really weird book. If you guys like that kind of stuff, check it out. Right? China Millville, look him up on Amazon, Wikipedia. You can see he's got quite a few books out there, all kind of strange like this. So. All right, what time is it? 22 minutes in. All right, so got another 40 minutes. So actually, I could slow down a bit and kind of just discuss this in more detail. All right, so let's talk about how do you actually want to start these. So one of the things I like when working off of a photo plate to generate initial ideas is to actually use a very, very low res image and not something that's extremely high, because I want to keep the pixel density low. If I have a really, really high res image, that makes the density too high. Therefore, I gotta match my painting to that density. In this case, I'm using images that are literally about 300 pixels wide. I mean, they're tiny little black and white photos, really, really tiny. And I blew them up to 5,000 pixels. So what happens is it creates a blurry effect on the photo plate. So now nothing is sharpened. So that way, when I paint and create sharp edges and sharp corners in my paint will have a higher density and resolution than the photo that's underneath it, therefore making my painting the more finished part and not the photograph. If you do the opposite, you're going to have a hard time painting because the photo will have almost this infinite degree of complexity to it, that unless you paint for hours and hours and days, you cannot match that type of density. Yeah, so definitely recommend you guys to try this with a lower density photo, something really, really small. And since I'm covering the image up, you don't really have to worry about copyrights and all that kind of stuff too much in this case, because we're not really using the photo at all. As you can tell right now, this top image and what I started with are completely different. There's almost nothing left of it. And in fact, what's left of it is actually composited images, like the walls I'm working on right now on the right side. Those walls are not part of the original image. It's kind of like I extended the canvas. I already manipulated the photo plate. So nothing really matches up by the time you're done. So, but if you're doing a matte painting, for example, matte painting is not the same as this one. This is just using a photo plate to start the idea. A matte painting, the photo actually stay as part of the final. So in cases like that, you really want to be using images that are copyright free or something that you're taking yourself. So, but if you're going to just use an image as a starting point, you can pretty much use whatever you want. So, because you're destroying the image in the process, you're not using the photographer's subject matters or image for anything. So, in this case, I composite like two different images together. You can see the battleship put onto the street, just completely bizarre, but you'll see how I put the two together as I apply paint here. So in the book, they describe this kind of a prison, kind of a junk ship, pretty big. Then they have like prisoners and slaves and all sorts of people on board. And the main character starts their journey on this book, and they're traveling from one port city to another. So I thought it would be cool to try to paint that scene and design that ship out here. So this image, I'm also changing the scale. The ship's scale actually remains pretty much the same. I like the scale of it. This is like a battleship of some kind. So it has a pretty nice scale, but obviously the background does not match. So later I'll paint out those cars and all those kind of big windows and match the scale to the ship so everything's nice and big. And since now I have the design language established from the first image, the second image will be a little faster to generate. So because I know where I'm going with it now. Whereas the first one took a little bit longer time to figure out. Yeah. And give the stuff a try. Again, if you haven't done this before, give it a try. If you're frustrated with it, do a line drawing. That's something that at our school, we don't even let our students do this kind of stuff until much later in term 2. Until they have their fundamentals in place, we don't allow them to work off photo plates, because it could create a very bad habit if you get into this kind of technique too early. Because then you rely heavily on photos. And I've seen that happen with students in the past, in which they get into this technique very, very early before they have a full understanding of fundamentals. And what happens is every single image, they depend on the photo. And the thing is, they're not running the show, they're letting the photo run the show. So they're essentially locked by the photo in terms of design. So they cannot change the content anymore. And pretty much they're only changing 20-30% of the image, and everything else is still the photo. So if you ask them to do something that's really, really different, something that does not have a photo that goes with it, then they usually have a lot of trouble with it because they don't know how to generate the idea. So definitely do this once you have a good understanding of all your setups and how to do compositions and your perspective, anatomy, all the basics basically, right? To get that stuff down. Right, so here now I'm starting to manipulate the scene itself, the city stuff. Now I'm putting the architecture, the same kind of balloon, this kind of spherical architecture that you see in the top image. So the three of these will be in a set. Now you don't have to do your images together like how I like to do it. This is my own pipeline of working. I like to put all my images on the same canvas. This way, again, it's a time saver thing. It's not really a big deal if you separate them out into 3 different canvases and work on each one separately. It doesn't matter. But just by having 3, I could constantly keep my eye on all 3 images. So as I work, if I see a mistake on one of them, I can always just go back up and work on it, and then go back down to this image and work on this one for a while. So I don't have to switch windows. So you're essentially saving just like 3-5 seconds or something like that, like just a few seconds of difference between this and working off different canvases. But if this is the pipeline is the way you like to work, then that's the way you work. So nothing wrong with it. So I've been using this process for a long, long time, in which everything's on the same canvas. And later for presentation, I'll cut these up, right? So for clients, you definitely want to break them into 3 different canvases. Otherwise, it could be overwhelming to them. They're seeing too much stuff at once. So you want to isolate these images out so they could take their time looking at each design in its isolated form, so they don't get influence from other pages. Right. So this is only being done during production. All right, more architecture. So this is a port. I want to add in some of those kind of drawbridge things and just pulley systems, things that kind of take cargo off of ships. Yeah. Excuse me a second as I get more water. Yeah, it's kind of not professional to drinking while recording, but time is short, so I don't want to stop the recording. All right. But we'll try to do the Q&A one of these days. Hopefully, maybe even next week. We'll see. So we're getting too busy over here. Just so much stuff going on that it's really hard to find time to do these things. All right, but you guys are still very, very cool. You guys are all watching, leaving us comments. So we do read all the comments you guys put on our YouTube page as well as Facebook. So don't think that we're ignoring our audience here. It's just that, and we compile them. I have staff that compiles our questions. So we have all this kind of stuff documented. So it's not like we're abandoning our viewers. So we're always aware that we need to keep you guys entertained from time to time. So we cannot make sure that these things don't stretch out too long without an update. So today, that's why I decided to sit down and crank this painting out for you guys. Well, actually, 3 paintings. So, and get in the habit of mass production. It's a very good thing to figure out your pipeline, so you know how long something will take. Working on one of anything at one time is, to me, this is just my own opinion, but I think if working on one image, how it's done, is very, very dangerous, because you run into the trouble of bad time management. If your first image took you 5 hours and you only have 2 hours left, and you're forced to spend the next 2 hours finishing the second image. Imagine you have 3 images to do. Now the third image never gets done. So in this way of working, you have all 3 images coming to completion at the exact same time. So all of them has the same finish, so not one overpowers the other. And hopefully, if you manage your time right, all 3 will get finished at the same time. So yeah, get a good habit of producing in mass. And that's something that's very common in this business. We don't do one-off designs. Everything is like, here's my 3 designs, here's my bunch of designs. Everything is presented in groups. And everyone's on a team doing that. Then if you're working in-house or freelance, then you're providing the clients with your art director with a ton of cool stuff to see. Okay? And that always makes everybody happy. Nobody wants to pay a concept designer and wait for a whole week, and then all they get back is like a single image or something. That's pretty slow. You know what I'm saying? So part of this business is actually the ability to work fast and to produce high quality work within a short amount of time. So it's not really a thing like, it's a slavery thing in this industry or anything like that, but it is highly competitive. So it's not something that the clients are necessarily asking for. It's just that concept guys out there are fast. You know what I'm saying? So if some guy's really, really fast and you're super, super slow, well, guess what? The fast guy is going to get all the jobs. So in return, everybody gets really, really fast at doing this kind of stuff because the slow guys just don't survive in this business. So most clients, they don't actually ask for crazy stuff like give me like 10 drawings a day or something like that. Some places maybe, but the thing is we just tend to work at that speed anyways. So, and it benefits us as freelancers especially, because then you could take on more jobs because clients don't really know if you're spending how many hours on these pieces. As long as they're getting the kind of the industry standard of pieces per day, then they're pretty happy. So if you could do those pieces in 1 hour, but it looks like something that took you 8 hours to do, hey, that's more power to you, right? So this creates an industry full of concept dudes who are just really, really fast at their job. So, and in order to survive alongside with these guys, you have to also speed up your time. So, yeah, it's a weird thing, like you always think we should really spend the time to figure out these designs, some of these games, like these multi-million-dollar investments and stuff. But you'd be surprised how fast some of these designs come together, even though these designs eventually become toys and games and huge IPs. But they were literally done within like 2 hours. There's no not too much design time put into it. I mean, you basically have one shot to get it done, and that's the only design that survives into the final project. So, but that's how it is. That's reality. You know what I'm saying? Time is money in this business. You can't spend month and months designing something. So sometimes that'll happen. A lead character for a very important game might go through a whole 6 month designs, but sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes the lead character will take 2 days, and it's in the game. So yeah, it depends. But it's weird. It's a weird feeling sometimes when you're working on freelance and think, man, this thing I'm drawing at 4 in the morning here is going to be ending up as the first level for some big AAA title, and it's literally the stuff I thought of at 4 in the morning, and it's going to be forever in this game. So it's a strange thing that we do. So this piece here, very quickly, this was only taking about, I'm looking at the time here, 33, so it's taking about maybe 14 minutes, right? Again, this is not being sped up. This is how fast I'm painting in real time, so there's no speed up here. So the 13 minutes really is all it took to change the original photo of the big giant battleship in New York to something that's a lot more weird sci-fi fantasy, right? The original image has completely disappeared by this point. So you cannot see, the battleship has a little bit left on the bottom section, but that will be changed shortly as well. So that's really what these photo plates serve to do. They just kind of save you some time, give you some composition, give you something to kind of grab onto with your brush, and the rest of it is completely in the hands of the designer. So if you don't have a good subject matter or a good idea, the photo plate is not going to help you. In fact, like I said earlier, it's going to hurt you. So they got to completely slow you down or make you create a big giant mess of nothing. So I've been teaching this for a long time. So I've seen students, who get in too early just literally waste time using photos to composite just random stuff because they don't have a design philosophy in mind when they started it, and therefore they're always not in control of the image, and they end up basically doodling around for a few hours and they end up with nothing. So if you want to give this a try, maybe even start with some thumbnails first, like look at your image and just generate a couple of thumbnails to see some design directions, figure out some design language, and then jump right in to the real painting. So here I'm creating some parallax behind this ship because it's kind of probably a little hard to see on the video. It's because this ship right now has nothing behind it, so it's hard to push it into the front. So I want to put something behind it to let your eyes see that this ship is actually in front of the camera and in front of the city as well. At this point, I'm still trying to decide if this ship is sailing through the water or is it docked. Later, I changed it so it's docked into the harbor and no longer moving. Right now, it still has the feeling of it's driving through this curved canal of some kind. Now I'm docking the sky up. The sky was way too bright. It was kind of burned into the whites. So, and it also has to do with this video as well. So the compression kind of makes everything a little bit too bright. But still, it's a little washed out. It's a little blown out. These whites are all kind of blown to 100% white. So that's too strong on the page. So I'm going to just take it out with some airbrush. And here I'm adding the background structures to create that parallax between the ship and these towers. And this will really help me sell the scale and the space around this ship. I think in the book, the ship is not this big. This ship right now is a battle cruiser size. And in the book, I imagine the boat to be something like maybe like a small freighter or a ferry, so it's not super huge. This one right now could carry probably like 1,000 people. And maybe it is that big. Actually, I don't know. It's been a while since I read the book. Maybe they could carry like 1,000 people. I think at this point I'm starting deciding, do I connect this boat to a dock or do I not? These are decisions that you make as a designer. Kind of scary stuff when you're working freelance. You're basically pretty much all freelance designers are part art directors as well, because no one really watches you, especially the more experience you have. They kind of just give you an assignment or a design project on Mondays or something, and no one really checks on you for the entire week. So you have to self-art direct yourself throughout all those days, because these decisions you're making, you don't want to pester the client like, hey, should I do this or should I do that? Should I connect the ship or should I not connect the ship? You made those decisions, and those decisions actually affect these games. So it's quite crazy when you come up with these ideas. I sometimes like, yeah, maybe I should do this, and then later you see the game coming out, and they did exactly what you did in the concept art. And that decision could have been completely different if you just waited like another 30 seconds. You would have probably made a different decision, and the entire game would change course. So it's quite bizarre, the decisions that we make in concept art and how that influences the final product. So, because remember, clients are hiring you for your idea. So if your idea is cool, they're not going to change it. They're like, hey, this idea is cool, let's use it. Yeah. So they're not going to have concept art and just waste it. So if you have some cool stuff in there, like you have a ship crashing and getting stuck in the middle of a building or something, it looks kind of cool. They're going to try to put it in the game as well to try to match your concept art. So, all right. So now you can see I'm collecting the dock together. So now the ship is going to be anchored to the port. Draw in, and I'll add a little gate area as well, so you can kind of see where the union of the anchor and the boat, or the ship I should say, comes together. This one kind of turned out okay. I kind of like this one because even when we do these as multiple pieces, if you think about it in real time, right now this is what, 38 minutes in. In real time, this is only taking 20 minutes each painting. So if I have 3 of these and it takes me only an hour to do all 3 of them to this point, right? They're not done, but they're definitely good enough for you to figure out what's going on. You could actually at this point start to self-art direct. You could cut paintings you don't like. So if I have another hour, I could generate another 3 that end up with 6 paintings in this quality. at that point, I could just pick maybe 3 or maybe even 2 paintings to finish, right? Abandon the other ones. So it gives you these opportunities to play around with compositions and your favorite images. So if I had to choose of all 3 which one to keep, I'll probably keep this middle one. I think that's the most interesting one. And then just ditch the top 2 and never finish them, right? And then just do another batch of 3, pick one from that, and do another batch of 3, pick one from that. And that's all achievable within a day's work. So this pipeline that I have, that I've been developing the last 15 years of working or so, is all very, very important for a designer to possess. So that way, if you're working with clients and they ask you how long something's going to take and how many pieces they could perhaps expect in a day, you could give them a very, very close answer. So versus like just pure guessing, Right, balancing the values a little bit more. If you guys have questions regarding this process or anything else, just again post it on our YouTube page, and I'll have somebody log those in, and I'll try to get to it in the next question and answer. So, and since the next one is going to be a QA episode, then feel free to fill in a bunch of questions. But try to ask questions that has not been asked before. So, or if you know the answers because you watched my previous episodes, maybe you can help someone who asked a question that might not have watched the previous episodes. So, like for example, what brush do you use? That's like probably the #1 asked question on our videos, right? Like what brush do you use? So I've answered that like dozens and dozens and dozens of times. So maybe some of you guys could jump in and just basically the answer is it doesn't matter. Use whatever you want. So the brush or the tool is not going to make you into a better designer or artist. It is your design knowledge, your fundamental skills, your passion for this industry and your knowledge for this industry. That's what's going to make you good, not a Photoshop brush. I mean, if you think about it, if that's the case, then our school will be so easy to teach. Just students sign on, you give them this brush, and everyone turns into fantastic painters. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. In fact, you give them every brush you want, it doesn't work. It takes time, many hours, actually hundreds and hundreds and thousands of hours before one becomes somewhat professional. So I wish there was a magic button in Photoshop, then it'll make everyone's life easy. But then it'll make everybody's job go away because there'll be hundreds and hundreds of concept guys out there because it'd be so easy, right? So the reason why there's so little concept guys out there is because it is actually quite hard to break into this industry. You have to know so much stuff to break in. So especially if you want to work for the big AAA titles, like you want to work on Skyrim or Assassin's Creed or whatever else is out there, Batman and things. These are all AAA game studios. So even for professionals, it's very, very hard to break into those companies. Like you have to do art tests and be interviewed like freaking dozens of times because they're allowing someone to enter into a AAA title. So that's a huge investment on a company, right? They have to put a lot of trust in you. So they're not just going to grab some random guy and go, oh yeah, sure, you could go ahead and work on Skyrim too. This $100 million IP. You could go ahead and work on it. It doesn't happen that way. They're very selective on who they bring onto the team. So even pros will have trouble getting onto those projects. So for someone who just doesn't know too much about this business and just drawing for fun, that is a very, very faraway dream to achieve. If you think you could get into a AAA, you have to actually do this for thousands and thousands of hours and take it very, very seriously. Especially now, right? If this is 15 years ago, I'd be like, dude, just draw well. You could probably have a chance to break it in because there wasn't enough concept guys around, and nor was the industry big enough to be picky. So now it's like AAA titles everywhere. These studios can now have the luxury of picking only the best guys to be on their teams. They don't need to be like, oh yeah, let's just get anyone who could draw. Now it's like we want someone with 5 years experience, or some studios require like 7 years experience. Plus you have to ship at least 3 major titles, meaning that it can't be games that no one had heard of. It has to be 3 games that it's AAA level. And then you can actually even be looked at in your resume. So it's tricky, man. So a lot of work. So our students here, they're under a lot of pressure sometimes to land those kind of jobs because it's so hard out there in terms of the available jobs, right? Because concept art, the positions are rare that they even come up because most studios only need a few guys. But the good thing is there's so many games development these days. It's like ridiculous, right? Especially as a freelancer, I kind of know a lot of projects that are in development. In February, this is like the golden period in freelance because a lot of companies, they close their books, or they open their books in February. For those who know finance, you know what I'm talking about. They basically open a fresh budget, usually around February. They close in January. So they have this new influx of cash, and some of the first thing they do is hire in freelance designers, right? Because freelance designers are expensive. So they get these guys on board and start generating all this work. So there's a ton of work out there right now because you have Xbox 720 coming out in a few months, or I think early next year, and then you have the PlayStation 4, which is announced. So of course these consoles, in order to launch them, must have launching titles to go with it, because the consoles don't make money. It's the games that makes the money for the companies. So they have to have these huge launching titles that show off the technology as well as the the capabilities of the next console. So there's just a ton of next gen game in development, and all of them are trying to do a good show for E3, which is coming up in May. So there's just so much freelance for concept right now. They're all trying to scramming to get cool visuals out before E3. Because your game does well in E3, you have a pretty good chance of selling a lot of copies. So and right now they depend on a lot of outside freelance guys to pump that information into the company, or even to just throw them a left curveball to see like what will someone else take on this IP, that we've been doing internally. So job-wise, yeah, there's a lot of work, but to get that work, you have to be quite good at this kind of stuff. So we always tell our students, like the best guy, he could be like, dude, I have so much work, I can't even take them all. I got like 10 freelance projects at once. I get to pick the top 3 and then throw away the last 7. Meanwhile, the guy who's not so good has like no job offers, like 0. I got crickets chirping on the phone. It's like nothing. So that's how it is in this business as well. The good guys gets all the jobs, and they pass it to his friends, and then the guys who are not so good gets nothing. So it's not a very fair business. So same with mine. I have a design company in Los Angeles, right? So when I have, in fact, I have a big project right now, and the first guys I hire are my buddies that I went to school with, or guys I know from the industry. So I don't really hire outsiders, like people I don't know. Or do I take a chance with someone I never worked with? Because it's too risky to get a junior designer. Especially if you put them on AAA titles, the risk is way too high. So you do not want to put someone like a student or something on a big IP, such as like say Skyrim or something. That's much too big of an IP to take a risk with someone who's junior. So you gotta make sure they have some development experience before you put them on a AAA. So anyways, back to this painting. So this cityscape is taking even less time. This is only been 10 minutes, I think, since I started on this one. So, and that's again in real time. So we've taken the harbor and start changing it into a cityscape. So I really like the way this one looks. Actually, the original photo play was quite cool. And I actually kept the composition pretty close to the original photo, but I will divide up the river a little bit and segregate the city so it makes more design sense. This scene reminds me of Shanghai. For those who've been there, you know that Shanghai has a river running through the city, divided into basically a west and an east side. And the west and east are very, very different from each other. So you got like the industrial side, and then you have the financial district with all the awesome tall, futuristic skyscrapers. So I'm trying to do that here as well. So in this case, I'm gonna make the future side, or the CBD, the business centric district, on the left side, and I'll make the factory side onto the right side. I think that's the way I did it, right? So you have this kind of division, let the river divide the way the city is planned, and that gives me a grounding for design as well. So that way, as I put details and I start drawing various parts of the city, I sort of kind of have a mind's eye or the general idea of how this is all planned out. So I'm not designing in the blind. So we tell our students all the time, before you design something, create a backstory, right? And this backstory sometimes never told to the audience. It's never even told to your art director. It's never told to anybody. But in order to design, you have to believe in the design yourself. You have to create a whole backstory. It's like the city was founded 500 years ago, and they mined this mineral. This mineral gives out some kind of crazy gas. And then 500 years later, this gas made the sky purple, and then that's why I made this purple city. And clients can just be like, hey, that's a cool image. That looks pretty good. Never figured that you actually created a backstory for yourself for this image. And when they get the image, they could change the backstory on you. They could change it so it's like the sky is purple because the nearby sun is like blue or something. They could change it to their own thing. But at the end of the day, the cool image is the one that sold it. And it doesn't matter how you got to it. If you have to create a crazy backstory to get to it, that's fine. So, and I do the same thing when I do my designs here. Is in this case, I have a backstory. I have the book, The Scar. So I recall the memories from that book and constantly running that through my head. Like if I'm on this boat and I sail to the city, what do I see? What do I remember? What kind of words the authors use? How did they describe it? And the way I see the book is very grungy. It's very, very crowded. It's like full of people and weird buildings and, juxtaposition buildings everywhere, just things not built on the grid. Everything's kind of chaotic. It's not, nothing's on 90 degree. That's how I see the world, and I'm trying to do that in my concept paintings here, right? Versus like say a Minority Report type of future, which everything's on the grid, everything's perfect, right? Everything is very clean. So these are things that you run through, and the clients could never, they don't have to care. You know what I'm saying? They don't care about your backstory. They just care about, oh man, that's a cool image, and they'll adopt their own backstory to it. So anyway, so here's putting a lower tower. Right. So these images, you can see that the first 5 minutes is all spent on getting rid of the photo plate, right? Dumping all the original image and try to take it into your own direction as quick as possible. So that way you don't let the photo run the show for you. You let your own designs run the show. That'll make everything much, much easier. All right, let me grab another drink of water here. I think we got, what, 10 more minutes to go on this video? Maybe a little bit more. Let me check the time, 49. Alright, I think we're good here. Alright. Okay, still painting. Running out of stuff to say. It's been 50 minutes talking straight, so my brain's kind of fried here. But I'll talk about the workflow as well. So you notice that I started with the top image for the painting because that's the closest image. So that one burns the most brain cells in terms of thinking, and that's the one I use to define the design language. So usually that's how I approach my designs as well, which is just start with the hardest image. So you can utilize all your thinking powers on that image, and once that's done, then you can kind of go and do the easier one. And since this one is your establishing shot, the more zoomed out version, the one that has the least human-sized detail, then it becomes the easiest painting to do as well. So that's why I saved it for last. But sometimes I do the opposite. You know, if you're having a very tiring day and you have to do a very hard design subject, then sometimes I actually start with the easiest one, which is establishing shot, because that kind of eases you into the project. It doesn't put too much pressure on you, and usually because it's a little bit easier, you can tend to produce better results. And then once you have good results, you boost your confidence, and once you have confidence, it gets a lot easier to produce the harder stuff. So it works both ways. Design is one of those things that you really need to do a lot of to find your sweet spot, right? And also, you know all these techniques, right? One of the reasons why I do design cinema and show you guys all these different approaches to design, right? This is just one of dozens of different ways I've shown you guys how to design. Is because as a professional designer, you have to have a mass amount of techniques under your belt, so that way you could use them in different situations, right? You don't want to be a one technique guy, because if that technique fails you, then you'd be in a lot of trouble, because how do you adopt it if that technique fails, right? So that way so by knowing a lot, you could maybe use line drawing for one project, maybe you can use abstract paintings for another one, maybe you can use like shape extraction, which I showed you a few episodes back, or you can use this photo plate method, or you can use raw paint. Now, there's so many different ways to get to a design. So the more you know, the easier it is to fit into a production, because it opens up your production pipeline. If you rely on one technique, that could get you a lot of trouble if that technique is not working for a particular project. So, and when I start on a project, I'll always kind of analyze what this project is and which is the best process to use. In fact, I usually do a little bit of mock-up for myself as well when I start a project, just to see like, okay, will this work or not? You know, give it a quick try. So if that works, I'll then use that technique for the project. So I'm always trying to learn new stuff as well. Watch other people do their demos and see what else is out there. Just give it a try. And sometimes it might work for somebody, it might not work for you. So you have to give it a try to see if this technique actually works. Because in this, when you're doing this, there's nothing that's ever wrong in terms of technique, right? As long as you don't plagiarize work and tracing over somebody else's design or something, you could try any technique you want. If your result looks good, then there's nothing wrong with it, right? So always experiment. And by doing these videos, you guys could try out different ways to produce your own work. The key is in the design. That's what clients pay us for, is the idea that's on the page. They really don't care how you get to it. They just want the designs. So, and they also want it in a very fast amount of time. All right, so right now I'm trying to separate the forms. Pretty soon I will divide the river, because I feel like the gap in the river is just way too wide for this. I want it very claustrophobic-like city, so everything is nice and close to each other. So by having this wide river, it kind of kills that feeling of the narrowness of it all. So I'm gonna go in and draw a central divider and just break that form up into a narrower river, essentially creating two different paths. So, and also making the side of the industrial side a little bit more busy. So that kind of shows why that side is more industrial, because that's where all the little ships docks. Whereas the ship right now in the bottom left corner, that's where maybe the bigger ships dock, and it's less industrial and more like immigrants and that type of cargo, right? So, and those are the guys who go into shoppings and the market districts and your central business districts. Just trying to put a little bit of reality into these kind of things. So, because people looking at your paintings, they're also going to refer to whatever they know about the real world. So if you could kind of emulate stuff that they already know, then it's much easier to sell the concept to them than something that's completely bizarre and foreign. So knowing cultural references is super, super important in this business. All right, still painting here. Let me take another break and drink some water. Hopefully this is helping you guys who never seen this technique being used before. No magic here, just pure work, but you do need to know how to extract perspective well. If you want to see something that's similar to this, you could check out the UFO attack video. I have no idea what episode that is, but it's a couple way back. It's probably 2 years ago or something like that. But it uses a photo technique, and that one's also that one's actually done in color, so it's not black and white. This one's mostly value painting; it's all black and white. So, but both of them use a similar technique. But that other video shows you how I extract perspective out. So this one I kind of just eyeballed my perspective, but the other one actually produced a perspective grid. So. Still painting away, still adding details, right? Let me know if this kind of real-time painting is working for you guys, because it is slower, you know, and obviously you can tell I don't even have too much to say as well as I do this, yeah. So when this stuff is sped up, it's a little faster in terms of flow, but right now you're watching everything go in real time. The school situation is a little bit different because we have you know, students are here we cram them so much information because they're here full-time students. But for YouTube audience, you don't want to cram them stuff. And also, I don't know how many other videos you guys have watched. So whereas here, we know what term they are and what week they're in, so we know what information they already had and what they don't have. So we can actually talk about a variety of subject matters. So, all right, back to this. You can see that's the splicing line I talked about earlier to divide the river into two separate zones. And on the right side will be the industrial zone, and that's where all the small ships will dock. All right, what's the time here? 56 minutes. All right, so far so good. That leaves us another, let's see, another 18 minutes I think we have here. It's pretty good. Right now I'm trying to copy and paste something acting funny, so I didn't. I think because, oh, by the way, I'm not using any layers for these paintings because they're meant to be comps. They're not meant to be super, super refined. So there really isn't a need to use a lot of layers. But the use of layers is completely up to you as well. There's nothing against it. You want to use layers, go ahead. It doesn't really matter. All right. Painting the harbors, connecting all together, making sure all the values match. Yeah. This painting is relatively easy to do due to the zoomed out factor. So these are the ones you have a lot of fun with because the stress is super, super low because it's very hard to make a mistake on these far away paintings versus like the top one with the boat. Those things, you know, they're not that hard either, but you have to take your time and be a little bit careful because it's very easy to screw it up. You know, because it has a very distinct horizon line and a little bit closer perspective versus this one, you know, this one's a pretty far away shot. You're talking about probably like a 400mm lens or something, so the perspective is pretty flat. So even though there is perspective, we're looking down on the city, the individual buildings are kind of flattish, you know, especially the ones that's about halfway through the center of the screen. They get all kind of 2D looking. So all I gotta do is just draw a silhouette. You don't have to plot out their vanishing points. So only the nearby buildings have some VPs on them, vanishing points on them. So that makes it much, much easier to draw. And because of the value gradation, you could create this kind of depth very, very easily. Because also the bigger something is, or the bigger the scene, the easier it is to divide the atmosphere. If you're in a room, for example, like just a tiny little bedroom, it's really hard to build atmosphere because there just isn't enough space to create that value separation. So it'd be kind of weird to put like all this fog inside a bedroom, right? So you have less kind of tricks to play with in terms of what you could do to push scale. These far things, that's why, you know, doing like the size of a giant city or the size of a 1,000-story tower is relatively fun to do because you could pull up a lot of visual tricks to help you sell the painting. Now I'm dividing the harbor up, dividing some horizontal lines to cut across to show that little ships that sail in could actually park inside there. So obviously those would be much smaller boats. The bigger ones would be docking on the right side. Yeah, I click flip the canvas, so it gets confusing sometimes. And those who ask how I flip the canvas, that's just a hotkey you can make in Photoshop. So Photoshop lets you hotkey anything you want. So it's pretty cool. You can actually delete hotkeys too. So if sometimes you accidentally press something that you never use, then you can delete the hotkey from Photoshop, so you don't press it by accident next time. The new version really is quite cool. These are quite new to Photoshop, I think. I don't think in CS1 I could have done that, although I don't remember. Now I'm drawing another ship for scale. All right, throwing that guy in there. This painting is almost done. I'm gonna take a quick pause here to just check how much time is left on this, right? So hold on 1 second here. All right, I'm back. So far so good. I just checked. I have exactly 14 minutes left on this video. So far so good. Hopefully I can pull this off with one cut, right? I'm not taking multiple pauses or something like that, which is quite difficult. So again, it's due to time. So sorry if this episode sounds a little weird because I'm like just making stuff up as I go here. Usually I take a pause, think about what I'm gonna say for the next 20 minutes and take a pause, say what I'm gonna say next 20 minutes, a little bit more structured. For now, I'm like drinking water and like my mic is moving around. I don't even know if I'm gonna have audio problems, but hey, at least it's free, right? So if I was charging you guys for this will be like a retake, I think. So since it's free, we can always blame it on that. Hey man, it's free, so. But still, try to create some quality, even though if it's free, right? We don't want to create crappy content here. All right, I gotta say something more relevant, right? What can I say that's relevant? Let's see, what else questions are being asked in the YouTube stuff? I think generally it's quite good. There's so many of you guys out there now that when someone asks a question that's been asked before, a lot of you guys just jump in and answer for me. And most of you guys are all right on the answers as well. So. And by the way, those, sometimes I do see guys posting links to their work and asking like a professional to or me or somebody to look at it. Stuff like that is fine. But the best way to see if you're good or not is just to post in an art forum. Go to some big art forum like CG Talk or something like that, or a CG channel. And there's a lot of them out there, right? Or CG Hub maybe is another one. So just post your stuff in the forum and make a gallery and see what the response is like. If you're getting crickets, like no one cares and no one's saying anything, then you're probably not there yet. Right? Because pros, the thing is like, what are they really gonna say? Because if you're an amateur, they're gonna tell you that. They're gonna be like, hey, your stuff is not so good. And that's probably gonna especially hurt someone's feelings, I think, especially if you never got critiqued before. And for most professionals, we avoid that kind of situation because we don't wanna get into argument with somebody we don't even know. You know what I'm saying? They could be like 12 years old, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? You say, hey, your work is not so good yet. They could take offense to that because this could be the first time in their life they heard such a critique from somebody, right? It could be their friends and their parents telling them, you're great, you're so awesome. And then the professional comes along and tells them, no, you're not great, you're not awesome. And you never know how they react. So most pros tend not to give feedback to someone they don't know, right? So the best way for you to get feedback is from the community on the internet. So post your stuff up and see what they say. If your stuff is good, they will find you, including professionals. So, but for those who are looking at feedback and you never had critique before, make sure you grow a very, very thick skin and never get into an argument with somebody, right? In this business, you cannot have an ego. You have to be very, very chilled. So if someone says your work is not good, if they're not a professional, first of all, professionals really don't go on public forums and say your work sucks. If they are doing that, they're probably not a very good professional. If they're super, super pro, they won't say such hard language. And if they do say it, they'll back it up with very reasoned arguments. They'll tell you this is because you maybe have bad anatomy, maybe you have bad perspective, maybe you don't have enough visual library. If they're saying these kind of things, you should probably listen to them in the first place because they're giving you experience, very, very valuable experience talk, right? But if guys are saying, dude, your stuff sucks, man, your stuff is really crap, I could do much better than you, they're probably pretty young and they're probably not a professional. Therefore, their opinions are pretty invalid to you anyway. So there's no need to get in an argument with them or fight back because if you do that, you're becoming like them. You're becoming just as bad and it puts your bad reputation on you. So this business, we always want to hire people who are very chilled, who has zero ego, very easy to work with. You can make fun of their work. We all make fun of our own work, and we don't care, right? We're generally very sarcastic about the stuff we produces. So if like you say, dude, these 3 paintings, they suck. I'll be like, yeah, they suck. I'm with you. Do you know what I'm saying? So it doesn't piss me off. I don't really care. Do you know what I'm saying? Because we have a professional job. We've been doing this for years and years and years. We make a great living doing it. So if some random kid saying your work is not good, it doesn't matter. Who cares? That's the guy without a job who wishes they could be working on video games for a living. Do you know what I'm saying? So if you're just starting out, you want to have the same kind of attitude like a professional. Just behave very, very chilled. Don't argue. Don't take anything personal because you're going to get the same kind of critiques from real professionals, real critiques from clients, right? You could have a company telling you, hey, all the work you did last night, we don't like it because design is not to spec. That is not a personal attack. That is nothing against you. That's about your design. So, and you have to separate that from your personal opinions, right? Go, okay, cool. Maybe the next round I'll match design, or maybe this design is not right for me, so I'll step off and get someone else to go on it, right? You don't take it personal, going, screw you, man. I'm not gonna work with you anymore. You're a horrible client. You're blah 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 blah. Don't do that kind of stuff, right? So this business is too small, especially if they're a big client. So in my 16 years of working now in this business, I think I started in 97, close to 16, 15 years now. I really haven't had any bad clients. You don't get clients who personally attack you or say bad things about you or whatever. You just don't get them. Most of the guys are pretty pro about it. So therefore, you act professional in return. And if you do get a client who is very amateur and stuff, just get them off your call list or whatever, and don't work with them ever again. So that's all there is, right? Don't make yourself ever a target for someone thinking you are a egotistic person, right? Just be chilled about this business. Have no ego. Right? My best advice to our students, because some of them, we post their work on Facebook or something, and some punk will say something negative about their work. And we train them very early on to not take it personal. Just go along with the joke. The best way to just go along with it. If they make fun of work, make fun with them. Then they have nowhere to go. In fact, usually they don't even mean it. They just want to say some stuff to get attention or something. So if you kind of diffuse the tension, they sometimes chill out themselves. You know what I'm saying? So no need to get into argument in this business. It's too small. In fact, sometimes I see a concept guy who might be pretty good, that I'm keeping my eye on. For example, he's on a forum or something, or he's on Facebook, and I'm kind of keeping my eye on this guy to see like, hey, maybe this guy is someone I could contact for freelance work in the future, right? To give him some stuff to do. But then I'll see like, hey, wait a second, the way he replies to his comments is very, very rude. The guy cannot take criticism. The guy, is completely egotistic. Then it's like, remove from, delete, don't look at this guy's stuff again. Because the guy's got a bad attitude. Even the work is good. Doesn't matter to me. You know what I'm saying? That's somebody I do not ever want to work with on a project because it would be a just total nightmare to art direct. Do you know what I'm saying? Because they can't take criticism. So anyways, that's some advice for you guys who are young, getting out there. Just grow that thick skin. Don't let it bug you. Do good work. Put on the forum. Don't look for attention. Let your work speak for itself. People will find you. The professionals will find you. You don't actually have to do anything. If you have good work, you don't need professionals to give you feedback. You don't need anyone to tell you, hey, this is good, this is bad. If you do good work, they'll tell you. But if you want genuine feedback, then go to a good forum, like CG Hub and these kind of places. I think they're pretty good. And then, just put it out there. People write stuff about it and see what they say. If a pro is saying your work needs work, then they should listen to them. Don't fight back. Okay, don't fight back to pros, because why would they say stuff to piss you off? Right? If they say stuff that's relevant, then take their advice and work on the parts they suggested. So, because in the past I used to give critiques like, you need to work on your perspective fundamentals, and the feedback would be like, what do you mean I need, my stuff is good, what are you talking about? There's like, wait, you're the one who asked for opinion from a professional. You're not a professional, and when a professional tells you something, you say it's wrong. So that's why I don't do it anymore, because you just can't win when with guys like that. So because of one guy, it stops a lot of really good people who probably want really good critiques from getting them. But that's how the business works. So Anyways, I'm straight off topic here as this painting slowly takes place. But even this is not done. I'm gonna basically, I think pretty soon I'm gonna stop this video and show you an hour or so that I skipped. And during that hour, I put a little bit more detail. Not that much back into it. It's only an hour and a half of detail. So, but that does add another layer of complexity to the final image and makes it presentable to whoever you're working with. Or if you're the art director, you could communicate those paintings to your artists in the team. So, in the day, it's all about communicating a design to somebody else. Let me check on time. I think I got about 5 minutes left on this video. Okay, cool. I think pretty soon I should be able to, I think I'll stop this video. Just last minute details here for this phase. Yeah. So hope this is all helping you guys see another technique of how we work in this business. So when I do real work, there's nothing different. This is exactly the way I do my real work as well. So I'm not hiding any technique from you guys or anything else. So this is exactly how myself work, as well as I think a lot of pros out there do very similar, right? We all use maybe different tools, different brush, different kind of layer settings and stuff, but the ultimate goal we get at and ultimate look and feel, the way we get to it is actually very, very similar. So yeah, a lot of my friends and we all use this technique working off of photo plates. It's just fast, that's why. All right, one more sip of water. I hope the audio is okay. I didn't check it for the entire 1 hour, so let's hope it's okay. If it's too loud, you guys can adjust the value. All right, 4 more minutes left. When am I gonna switch over? Because I remember at one point I stopped this video. It's gotta be somewhere around here, and then switch over to the other version. So should be coming any time now. This file, because it's black and white, is actually really, really fast in Photoshop. So if you're working in black and white, and even if you want to turn to color later, but if you're working in black and white, make sure you go to image and just save it as a black and white image, convert it from RGB to black and white. It makes the file smaller because it doesn't have to store in the other information regarding color. So, but nowadays with computers, it doesn't really matter, man. It's just an old habit I have from working, so long ago when computers were like ancient and extremely slow. So I still have some of those bad habits that I have when computers were just ancient machines. Nowadays, most of you guys probably afford pretty nice computers and stuff, so it doesn't really matter. All right, I think this is when I stop the video and load in the other version. Let's hope I do that. What am I doing here? I can't even see my cursor. Oh, I'm scrolling this up and down. I'm kind of just showing you where I stopped the video. So this is how far I'm getting in terms of in real time, hour and 11 minutes in. This is how far I got from when we first started at 0. So I think now I'm going to go ahead and load up the other pieces. Come on, anytime. Let's hope I do that. If I don't, the last 3 minutes is going to be really, really boring. So, all right, here we go. I think this is it. No, is it? No, it's not yet. I think it is. Yeah. So I think this is the more refined. No, it's not because the people are missing on the top. So I think I'm just holding it here for you guys to take a look at the zoomed out version. All right, here we go. That's the thing I'm talking about. All right, so now I'm gonna load up the initial image. That's the one that I saved before I even touched the second and the last image. And now I'm gonna open up the image you just saw. So that's the last time you saw it in real time. Yeah. And now I'm gonna load up the image I spent another hour and a half working on. And they're gonna look pretty similar, from this viewpoint, zoomed out, they're pretty similar. But if you actually zoom in, you see that I added like people and just another layer of detail. Essentially throwing another half an hour into each one. That makes it an hour and a half. So these, if you look at it as a whole, that's what, 1 hour to do 3, 20 minutes each, something like that, right? 25 minutes plus another half an hour each. So about an hour and 10 minutes or so to get to what you see on screen here per image. I think I'll zoom in here so you guys can see. All right, zoom one more. Here we go. All right, so here's a top image. So as you can see, I added a bunch of people walking around, put a little bit more detail in the city, try to get that kind of downtown vibe. This is still missing a lot of details. I could definitely put a lot more stuff into it, but I think it's enough for now to communicate the overall idea of what I want to achieve. So some radio towers, some background stuff. Yeah. This will be a fun one to clean up. Actually, there's a lot of stuff to do, like the tower on the left right there. That's pretty fun. All right, here's the one on the boats. Same thing, added people for scale. So it's always important to have some scale. Otherwise, you have no idea how big something is. So added some people, refine the ship design a little bit, put some antennas, some docking stuff, a gate by the docks, just to communicate the overall design package. This will be the one I think if I had to choose the three, this would be the one I actually tend to want to finish. So maybe I'll do that on my own time. We'll see. And then we have one more to go. Hopefully I scroll down here anytime now to show you that one. Here it is. This is the last one here. So this one, I put in some balloons, refine some buildings, clean up the harbors, just get it to that really busy claustrophobic city thing, right? And still retain that kind of a 1900s feel to the layout, right? And kind of chaotic. None of the buildings are on 9 degrees. So anyways, that concludes this video, I think. So I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you guys in the next Q&A session, hopefully within 2 or 3 weeks. All right. So until then, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys online. All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.